if you're an athlete that aspires to go Division 1, Power 5 preferably, and you want to know a little bit about what that takes, what that would entail from you, and what's required of you, then this podcast episode is for you. We want to take a look into the metrics of a Division 1 level athlete. And so if you like that, then make sure you take a listen to this episode. My name is Justin Miller. I am the host and owner of Legends of Athletics, and this is another Legends of Athletics podcast. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you for listening to us and welcome. If you are somebody that has listened to it before, thank you for coming back and being a returning listener. We always ask, because we don't have any sponsors for this podcast, that you like, rate, subscribe, share it with somebody, and let them know what we're doing over here. Because if not, hey, it's all for naught. But we don't have any sponsors, so right now, word of mouth is what helps us to spread this podcast, and we've been getting great feedback on that. I think we're at 100 listeners or subscribers on Spotify now, so that's great. I'm gonna have to get the clapping sounds in there, but I'm gonna clap for you. That's great. That's positive news, and so we want to make sure that we're improving on our end as we continue on this journey to make this podcast great and to make sure we give you great content. One thing that I've done differently with this podcast, to give a little story before we get into it, is just taking it a little more serious. As far as like the episodes I've done on my own, and to make sure I prepare more. I think a lot of times in our lives we underestimate the power of preparation. And so for those that may be dealing with like being overwhelmed right now, or feeling like you're very out of sync, then just take time to prepare, and that'll do wonders in your life as far as like your business, everything. Being a professional, that would do wonders for you. And so I just wanted to throw that little nugget in there. The first thing that I want to talk about as far as like the metrics of a Division 1 level player or Division 1 level athlete, regardless of sport, are the metrics that it takes to be Division 1. Of course, like when it comes to Power 5, we always talk about the speed, we always talk about the size and those measurables. But what are the things beyond that it takes to get to that level? Because 50% of the guys that sign collegiate level letters of intent, scholarships, however you want to word that, 50% of those guys will not be there after their freshman season. And so what does it take? Like what are you trying to delve into? A lot of times a lot of people, they just want the glitz and glamour and the shine and spotlight to be in that moment, but they're not willing to make the sacrifices and do the things that it takes to sustain that whenever they get to campus and things of that nature. So the first thing I will say is I want to pose a few questions. There's a creator out there. There is another sports performance coach on another YouTube channel. I seen it on TikTok as well, that was talking about, in order to be Division 1, you gotta do X, Y, and Z. And I will not name them, but the first question is, does strength matter? Does strength matter when it comes to going Division 1, Power 5, what have you? Honestly, not really. That may be shocking to some of y'all. It doesn't matter, honestly, because nine times out of 10, if that athlete is a standout athlete, then as an athlete, they will probably be decently strong, if not pretty strong, already. You won't see a great and weak athlete kind of don't go in the same sentence. So they'll be decently strong or have a decent base that you can build on. A lot of times people think about these bigger schools, like a 6A, a 7A school, with regards to what region you're in, and you think about polished athletes. And for the most part, a lot of athletes these days are polished, but you still get a lot of them that are very raw athletes when it comes to the weight room. And so like weight room numbers, to say that, oh, if you power clean 275, you're Division 1, that's kind of like misleading. It's not like that is misleading, because it's not a numbers base. You're an athlete first. The weights and everything after that is supplemental things. So they supplement who you are as an athlete. You don't go out to the field and see who bench presses the most, who can deadlift the most, who can squat the most. It's a metric. It's not the end all be all. So the first thing, does strength matter? I would say not really. The second thing is, are Power 5s important, or Power 5s as important as a Division 1 or lower level Division 1 school? Again, not really. If you look across the NFL, you get athletes from across the board from various schools. Of course, all of us think of, or I ain't gonna say all of us, a lot of us think about the SEC and how many guys in the SEC come out to go on to play professional football or Big Ten or whatever conference, Pac-12, things like that. But that's not the end all be all. You get a ton of guys. You still got a ton of guys in the NFL from small schools like the University of West Alabama, the University of Birmingham, things like that. Those smaller or lower level D1s, D2s, things like that. You still get athletes. Cooper Kupp, I think, went to a Division II. I want to say Division II, something like that. I could be off, but he went to something like that and came out and did well. Tyreek Hill with the University of West Alabama came out and is killing it in the league. And so, again, going Division I is not, or Power 5 is not the end all be all. It just depends, again, on who you are as an athlete, what your skill set entails, and then how you exploit that skill set. Does your skill set translate to the professional level? Or are you excelling at the level that you're on? And, that's really what it is. You just got to water the grass that your feet are planted on. That's really what it comes down to. You really can't look at other grass, say that grass is greener, this, that, and third. You just got to do well at where you're at. How does one prepare to go to the Power 5 level? If that's something that is in your heart's desire, first of all, it takes a little delusion. So you got to be a little delusional, one. Two, you have to be willing to sacrifice something. Whether that's your time, your energy, your commitment, you have to be willing to make a sacrifice to something. A lot of times kids talk about Division I because it's glamorous. It's the sexy thing to do. You get all the gear, you get all the showmanship, you get the notoriety, you get the platforms and things like that. But in all seriousness, the biggest thing I would say is sacrifice and just a willingness to work on your game and work on your craft. A lot of kids and athletes just don't spend a lot of time on their craft, and working out with your team, doing small drills and things like that. Those are great, but that's not really perfecting your craft. Now, you do need to get out there and work by yourself because that's going to affect your creativity on whatever surface you play on. And then the second thing you need to do is if you have someone to polish your game, work with them as well. And then you marry those two things together to be the best athlete that you can be. And so, that's the biggest thing I can say. It's like sacrificing and just working on your craft. You won't become a professional by having balance throughout your entire life. A lot of the greatest professionals that we've seen have sacrificed. Case in point, I look at LeBron James sacrifice his privacy because this man has been in the spotlight since 15, 16 years old and hasn't done anything crazy or egregious, but learn how to live with that lifestyle. Same thing when you see a lot of guys in the NBA, they have sacrificed their childhoods to an extent in order to become a professional at the levels and ranks that they are currently at. I remember, and I'm thinking of a story of an athlete that I trained. This was like my first or second year training, and I worked with this athlete, and they were going to a Power 5 school to play football. And the athlete started off at a different school, and then eventually, at that time before a transfer portal, eventually went to a Power 5 school. And the time that athlete put into his craft to become the best version of himself was enormous. We worked out, personally, we worked out 2 to 3 hours a day, 5 days, 6 days, sometimes 6 days, but mostly 5 days a week. At that time as a trainer, I had a lot more free time, so I was able to devote that time to that athlete. And so they spent a lot of time working on the craft, from the weight room and mastering that, to then going on the field and mastering drill work, mastering the hand placement, things like that. All those buckets, filling all the buckets to become a great athlete. And that athlete did that, and that took a lot of time. And that's just the reality. When somebody talks about going Power 5, for sure, those guys and girls put a lot of time in, from study hall to practice to film. studying your playbook is another class on top of the classes that you have to take for the university. And so those are some of the things that entails when you want to go to that level. Talking about the athlete that I talked about, he went to that level, had success at that level, and then the rest was history. But it took a lot of work and developing a new work capacity, developing a new standard in order to get him to where he had to be. The solutions I would say for the questions that I posed earlier were: one, be control the controllables. The things that are in your control those. So we can control what we eat. We can control our sleep. We can control our recovery. We can control the effort that we put into whatever, whether it's the weight room or whether it's the field, the court, wherever. We can control that effort that we put in and the intensity that we bring to that. And so first of all, control the controllables. Let the things that you can't control or that are outside of your control, let those things go. And so don't worry about those things. The next thing I would say is, do you want to play? And I got this is not an original to me. I'm quoting Coach Beckham on this, but this is a question that he posed to me before that I thought was real good for this podcast. You have to ask yourself this question: Do you want to be there and play, and which is, you want to play and have a career, or do you just want to say that you made it to that level and that you were on the team? Sometimes that's what it comes down to. I know a lot of kids talk about they want to be P5 players, but then it comes down to, well, do you want to just be on the team and say, well, I was there for, let's say you're a JUCO transfer, I was there for 2 years, or you went there, whatever, and more have you. You had 3 to 4 years, none PWO, so you're not a preferred walk-on, and you just set the bench and you were just there? Or do you want to have a career and say, hey, I look back and I put up stats, I was developed as an athlete and a player, and I can look back and be proud of what I put together on the field? Not saying that you can't make it to the Division I level, because we do have to be delusional at a point. But when it comes down to it, let's say you're a kid, your senior year has passed, the recruitment window, signing day, all that stuff officially has passed. Well, we got other things on the table. So what do we want? What do we ultimately want? Is a real good question that you can ask yourself. The last thing I would say is put your best work out there. Whenever you go into a game, whenever you go to practice, if your team films practice, that's putting game film together. Of course, everybody films game these days. That's putting good film together. So you have to say, well, am I putting my best foot forward? Because you can't take a week off here, then play at that level the next week, then go here the whole time. Nobody wants a seesaw player. Of course, your performance is going to increase and decline weekly, but you want that. If you want to be a Power 5 player, that has to be like that small, that much room for error. If it's anything that's large, big gaping, you're not prepared for that level. And so you have to ask yourself, going back to the controllables, what can I do to prepare myself for that level? Or are there things I need to sacrifice more? Are there things I need to fine tune more and things like that? And so if you can answer all those questions and take what I said into account, put yourself out there and pray for the best and let the rest of it follow. And I think that if that's in the cards for you, good things are going to happen. If it's not, make the best of your situation. And make sure that you do the things that legends do. Make sure you get 1% better each and every day. And as always, be legendary.